Let's talk some Michigan recruiting because the Wolverines are currently having an outstanding 2026 recruiting cycle, and they're not done. Currently sitting at number 10 in the industry rankings, Michigan, they have a chance through some flips to add to this class, potentially pushing to a top 5 finish. You know, they got Savion Hyder, they got Carter Meadows, but today in this video, we got Greg Smith, and we are going to go over a couple major flip targets down the stretch. Before we do that, Michigan fans, do me a favor real quick and hit subscribe to this Rivals Recruits channel because we are busy talking Michigan recruiting down the stretch. It's going to be fun. It is already heating up. Jump on board, hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in national analyst here at Rivals, Greg Smith, and we talked about some of the great players like Savion Hyder and Carter Meadows, but right now there's a couple needs still left, specifically at linebacker, and Michigan is on the hunt for some 2026 flips. Who are you watching, Greg?
Yeah, it's really interesting. This has been an interesting year for Michigan, like you laid out. They're having a great class, number 10 class in the country right now. But they stayed involved with Georgia commit Nick Abrams. I don't think they'll give up there, but it does look like he's going to stick with Georgia. New Oregon commit Braylon Hodge was also a guy that they were heavily interested in and hosted him for an official visit before he picked Oregon. So we know that they're on the hunt for flips specifically at linebacker, but I do have my eye on a couple of guys that I think that they're, standing in pretty good position with. Aiden Reeder was a Wisconsin commit up until this past weekend where he took an official visit to Michigan, and then he promptly decommitted after taking that official visit to Michigan. Like I think I said on the show last time, follow the visits, right? And so we know then the Michigan stands in a really good position with him. I expect them to get good news from Reeder as early as later on this week. I also think that there's another player out of the state of Michigan to keep an eye on that they, offered on Tuesday afternoon, pick commit Marcus Jennings. Michigan has a really interesting relationship with these pick commitments. They did it last year with Elijah Dotson, where they offered him later in the cycle, the defensive back, and flipped him. They're looking to do the same thing again with Marcus Jennings. And so we'll see if they could do it. He was actually kind of pro-Pitt when I talked to him yesterday, but then it turns out that he popped up on a visit, like an unofficial visit at Michigan yesterday. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. USF commit Caden Ketchens was also on campus for an official visit, a linebacker over the weekend. So yeah, it feels like a matter of who, not if they'll be able to flip a linebacker to close this cycle.
All right. So we know linebacker. We've kind of covered that this whole cycle on this channel about Michigan trying to add another linebacker, but they're also trying to add another defensive back. Do you see any flip targets in the defensive secondary?
Yeah, there's definitely a couple that I've been watching there. Danny Odom is a Nebraska commit out of Florida who it seems like has been circled by a lot of schools. There have been many schools that have been trying to poke around there and move him off of that commitment to Nebraska. Nebraska is well aware of that, and they're trying to keep him in the fold. But I think that Michigan is a team that has done a really nice job behind the scenes with him. They're trying to get him on campus like a lot of these kids for that big game against Ohio State. That's the game that we're going to really look to see if they can get some of those guys on campus there. And then, we, as you talked about before, I'm sure, and we've talked about kind of on the site, keeping an eye on these teams that have had coaching changes, right? And LSU is at the top of that list with 4-star California defensive back Haven Finney. Michigan had already kind of been involved there with him before that coaching change. And now that kind of their situation is in flux, he's another guy that Michigan would love to be able to poach and add to that class.
All right. So it seems like the focus should be on 2026 solely right now because signing day is just about a month away, but we are fully involved in 2027. I mean, Michigan already has their star quarterback, Peter Bork, on board, committed, recruiting for Michigan. Who else right now is Michigan in good shape for when it comes to this 2027 class?
Yeah, it's a perfect year for Michigan to be looking ahead to 2027 because in the state, it lines up beautifully. It couldn't really be any better. Dakota Garand is a wide receiver who's one of the most elite prospects in the entire country, regardless of position. And he's been to Michigan several times. And his dad told me recently that Michigan is going to be in this until the end. That's home. So we'll see how that plays out. 4-star edge, Ricardo Kitchen is right there in the state. And I think that Michigan eventually gets him as well. Anthony Cartwright is a 4-star tight end in Michigan that they're in a really good position for as well. And then when you go just a little bit away and go down to Chicago, Quentin Burrell, a 4-star wide receiver out of Mount Carmel, that powerhouse down there in Illinois and Chicago. He's a kid that's really high on Michigan. He's got a sister on the soccer team. He's been there several times. Now Michigan is going to have to battle Notre Dame, who is the other top contender, I think, at this point. But no, Michigan is well ahead on that 27 group, and if they just nail these kids down that are in the region, they'll end up doing a very good job. And we'll be talking about this Michigan 27 class quite a bit over the next year.
Yeah, some big-time names emerging on the board for 2027. Greg Smith, appreciate you dropping by the Inside Scoop today, talking a little Michigan recruiting.
Hey, thanks for having me, Josh.